I still believe in Mike Norvell as the head coach of Florida State football. Their floor this year is 6 wins. There's no chance they have a season as bad as what we saw last year. That was one of what FSU did in 2024. There has never been a team in the history of college football to win their conference championship and then the year after follow that up with a last place finish in their conference. The ceiling for Florida State is 10 wins, possibly making an appearance in the ACC Championship game. With all of the changes that Mike Norvell has made, from the philosophy that the Seminoles have with how they evaluate talent in the portal, the new coaching staff that he has assembled, Florida State is in for a major shakeback this upcoming season. I love the hiring of Tony White as their defensive coordinator. He was at Nebraska last year, and for 4 straight seasons in a row, Tony White has coached top 25 defenses at 2 different schools. Gus Malzahn, he's a wild card calling plays. Although things didn't work out with him as the head coach at UCF, with him taking a reduced role as the OC, only having to worry about calling plays, maximizing the talent on offense. He doesn't have to worry about the other nuances that comes with being a head coach. He could end up bringing back FSU's rushing attack. When FSU has been really good, they've always had really good running back play, and they've always been really dominant running the football down your throat. And getting Thomas Castellanos was the perfect fit for the kind of offense that Gus Malzahn plans to run this year. Thomas Castellanos, if you watched him at Boston College, he was really dynamic. I don't even know how he ended up losing his starting job. It was kind of weird to me because you look at his numbers, he had like 16 touchdowns, only a handful of interceptions. He's a little bit undersized, but with how elusive he is running the ball, with what Gus Malzahn has had success using in the past, design quarterback runs, a lot of RPOs, I could see Thomas Castellanos becoming a top 5 quarterback or better in the ACC this year. And that's going to be a major improvement from what we saw Florida State get out of this position last year. DJ Uyunglele was a complete wash. Brock Glenn and the other guy that you had out there, Croman Hawk, they weren't really that consistent. At least with Thomas Castellanos, you get somebody that's been a starter for several years inside of this conference. Hell, you got a first-hand glimpse of how good Thomas Castellanos can be when he's playing at his best. He was balling against Florida State when they played early last season. Mike Norvell has normally had success with quarterbacks that have dual threat ability. Jordan Travis, he had a similar skill set to what Thomas Castellanos had, although he was a more prolific passer. But Thomas Castellanos has the kind of prototype that Gus Malzahn looks for in his quarterbacks, with the ability to lean into his run-heavy approach, with how good he is running the football. Plus, you got an improved offensive line. You got 3 offensive linemen out of the portal that have combined for 66 total starts. This was an offensive line last year that was incapable of blocking a cockroach. You bring in 2 veteran wide receivers, Squirrel Wright from Tennessee, who's a really good deep threat. I've watched him a lot over these last couple of years down in Knoxville. Deuce Robinson, remember when USC and LSU played week 1 in Vegas, and you had that wide receiver who made that crazy one-handed catch? Deuce Robinson was that guy. He has really good size, good length. He could be similarly to what Johnny Wilson was for this offense a few years ago. Somebody that you just throw the football up when he has one-on-one coverage and no safety help over the top. Defensively and offensively, FSU is miles better than what they were in 2024. And it's hard to have a lot of confidence in Florida State this year due to the amount of hype that this team received during last year's offseason. You thought FSU would have had a top 10 team with the way this team was talked about. And instead, they end up losing to teams like Duke. It was just miserable watching Florida State. But despite having one down year, Mark Norvell, we can't overlook what he's done during his time in Tallahassee. prior to last season, FSU did nothing but improve in the win column. And I'm willing to give Mike Norvell the benefit of a doubt that last season was just a lot of character development for him. Some days you win, and some days you build character. And all 2024 was for Mike Norvell was a character building moment. And sometimes it takes having a bad season like that, which is arguably the worst season in the history of Florida State football, to realize that, you know what, we got to make necessary changes if we're going to be able to get back to the level that we expect it to be after we went undefeated and we got robbed of a playoff spot by the CFP committee. And with how the ACC is set up, I mean, Miami definitely could win it all in terms of the ACC title. Same thing with Clemson, but nothing's guaranteed in this conference. And this conference is kind of similar to what the Big 12 is. There's not really a large gap between the best teams in this conference and the worst teams in this conference, which is why I can't see Florida State winning anything less than at least 6 games. And this is coming from a Miami fan. You have to be really awful once again at everything for Florida State to be as bad or if not worse than what they were last season. I really don't think it can get any worse. We didn't see Willie Taggart, Jimbo Fisher have a season that was disgustingly as bad as what we saw in 24. And the only way for Florida State is up at this point. You can't get no worse than what you were. And with what they have from their freshman class that they brought in, expect to see a lot of those guys stepping up in big ways. Mark Norvell doesn't run FSU football the same way now that he was around this same time last year, which is why I still believe that Florida State is in good hands with him. I would be more worried if you saw Mike Norvell doubling down on the same approach that got FSU in that spot that they were in anyway last year. Most coaches that are terrible don't make adjustments, or at least they make adjustments when it's too late. Mark Norvell, once that season ended, he cleaned house with the entire coaching staff. He overhauled his approach to the transfer portal. These are the signs that you look for in a competent head coach. He still had his players fighting to the very end, although it is fair to question the effort of a lot of guys that they had. You know, some guys just decided to mail it in. But one thing about Mike Norvell is that he doesn't hesitate to make changes. And oftentimes when he does, they end up working out pretty well. This is one of the better coaching staffs in college football, believe it or not. Gus Malzahn is a veteran. The last time he was strictly an offensive coordinator, he helped Cam Newton lead Auburn to the national championship 15 years ago. And Tony White, if he does another good job with Florida State's defense, like how he has his previous 2 stops, not only is he going to be a finalist for Assistant Coach of the Year, but Florida State probably is going to have to replace him next year because he ends up getting a head coaching job somewhere. I'm really confident that we're going to see a major shakeback out of the Florida State Seminoles this upcoming season. And I also want to send my condolences to all of the victims of that awful tragedy that happened not too long ago with the mass shooting. Really despicable. I got a lot of friends, a lot of homies that attend Florida State. So my heart goes out to all the victims of that devastating travesty. And hopefully we can see Florida State, you know, give a lot of people on that campus a reason to smile again. And I believe that they will. I can't see them being as worse as what they were last year. I just can't see it. And this is coming from Miami fans. So I'm being completely honest. I'll be shocked if we don't at least see FSU in a bowl game.